What is up, fight fans? It is Jordan Kurtz with the MMA plug on Mile High Sports. We are coming to you live from the studio at number 38, presented to you by Volo and the Venus app. Plenty of things going on with Volo right now as we get into this spring season and approaching up for those summer activities. So make sure that you give them a look. Also, down here at the number 38, guys, there is lots of things that are going to be going on. We're going to have Danny Bailey give you a little bit more details on that. Got my man, as always, the faithful guy operating the boards. Danny, what's the details for these watch parties this weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be a huge weekend here at number 38. I just realized I didn't change your background, so I'll get on that here in a second. But we have a huge weekend this Saturday. Avalanche and Nuggets. Avalanche are in the afternoon, taking on the Winnipeg Jets. We're going to be doing pregame shows for both of those about a half hour before the game starts. We got great partners in these. Jameson is doing all our Avs parties with us. Suavecito Tequila doing all our Nuggets parties with us. And Fix It 24/7 doing all our watch parties. So they're going to be bringing in a lot of great stuff for giveaways. We have a great deal on margaritas too during Nuggets games. Half off a phenomenal margarita from Suavecito. So come on down on Saturday, hang out. There's also a Denver Summit FC game. So come on down, check out the women's soccer team, new to Denver, and also check out the MHS crew doing Nuggets and Avalanche watch parties. So we're going to be here all day. It's going to be a good time.
It's going to be a big day over here. So make sure that you come on, check that out. There's going to be plenty of festivities all throughout the day, as Danny mentioned. But moving along from that, we have lots of things going on in the sports world overall. So want to once again give a shout out to the Mile High Sports crew for all the things that they're doing out there. Just giving you my quick little rundown on the sports world. It's crazy time right now as far as NFL offseason goes. We just started the free agency period on Monday, and there were moves that were blockbuster type news or trades, whatever, if you will, signings all across the board. But obviously the biggest news was Max Crosby, him going from our divisional rival, the Raiders, over to the Baltimore Ravens. Well, there were some issues and complications with his physical, and the Ravens backed out of that deal. Now, I think the Raiders are still going to have to find a way to move him. Why do I say that? Because when you take a look at what the salary cap and what the numbers structure is, I don't think that they can keep him based off of the moves that they made and all the signings that they had.
They brought in a lot of people.
Yeah, they brought in a lot of people. They made, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of signings based off of the thought or the assumption that they no longer had Max Crosby's contract on the books. So they're going to have to do some crazy cap calisthenics or make some moves in order to make all this happen at this stage. And they lost all of their leverage now that he's had a recorded failed physical that had a deal fall through. They're not probably going to get 2 first-round picks, or that's what the deal was, right? It was like 2 first-round picks.
Something like that, yep.
Yeah, they're not going to get anywhere near the ballpark of that deal anymore to try to get him moved, but they're going to have to figure out something because the dollars have to make sense. Morale-wise, they traded him for a reason. He wanted out. They had a meeting of the mind, or a separation of the minds from those last couple of weeks of the season where they benched him. And yeah, I don't know how they make this work. We should also call out the hypocrisy, though, of this tampering period or the free agency period, whatever you want to say, because how do you have all of these deals being announced like within the first couple of hours of the window opening? Like, that means that these discussions were ongoing. That means that all of the proceedings have been happening for quite some time now for that level of change, or some of these guys making cross-country moves going from Seattle to Kansas City or so on and so forth. Those type of big mass migration moves, you didn't just start the discussion and then close the discussion within like 45 minutes once this window opened. We just need to change the terminology a little bit so it isn't so laughable or hypocritical, I guess, if you will. But that's just my 2 cents. You're going to have more of that talk with the NFL all the way up through the draft and some of these additional moves. In the meantime, in the NHL, the Avs, they made a huge splash, a very fan-friendly move at the trade deadline. They brought back Nazem Kadri, one of the favorites that was a major part of that team that helped them win the Stanley Cup Finals a couple of years ago. So I think that was that's something that, even if maybe it doesn't translate into a cup, you could never forecast that much, right? But what you can certainly say is that it had a massive boost to fan morale, or if you could even say that you could get them higher, right? Given that the Avs have had such a crazy, awesome season. I mean, they still have a 5-point lead on the rest of the entire league. Dallas Stars are definitely on their ass right now, going 9-0-1 in the last 10, but still, a big move for
and
the
that
Avs.
One loss was to the Avs.
Was to the Avs, exactly. So, like I say, that's something that I think it's a big deal for him, and you get a veteran who has that sort of high level and championship experience back in the locker room. I never think that that's a bad idea. Which and if you can get him for a bargain deal, Broncos go get Von Miller back and let him be the D-Ware for this room. I mean, maybe he only gets 3-4 snaps a game, but you get his veteran leadership. Just saying. The Nuggets, they're flailing a little bit backing into the postseason. They've dropped now to the 6th seed in the West so far. They've got to get it together. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries to deal with. They've had some adversity throughout the roster, but they've got Joker back. Gordon's back in the process. I don't know. He hasn't came back yet, but he's close, right?
Gordon's back.
He just came back.
Yeah, Peyton Watson not yet, but but at least we survived a scare with Jamal Murray, because that ankle tweak looked pretty bad when he landed on Joker's foot, and he came back the next game. So
yeah, so they're going to need all of those pieces together and working in sync in order to put together a postseason run. I mean, they have what's the 3 initial guy I always forget because I don't follow the NBA that much. The dude from Oklahoma City, that guy's going to be tough to deal with. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. You have to be dialed on all cylinders, right? Like that was the hold up for them being able to go the distance last year, was not having enough volume on the roster or enough pieces to be able to just match up with that 1-11 firepower that Oklahoma City had. You're going to need all of these guys in the postseason, healthy and in sync together in order to try to make a run and get another Larry O'Brien trophy here in the Mile High City. In the baseball world, you have spring training going on right now. You have World Baseball Classic pool play. Fernando Tatis Jr. just hit Israel with the biggest bomb since October 7th. Crazy stuff going on over there. I mean, entertaining games. It's always fun to watch. Sometimes there's a little bit of fireworks. We saw that a little bit from Team USA, and I believe it was Team Mexico, I want to say, with the Seattle Mariners catcher and one of their players having a little bit of an exchange of words. The guy hitting wanted to have a handshake with the catcher. The catcher, what they call him, like the booty or something like that, like
big dumper.
Yeah, the big dumper. Yeah, I knew it was something related to big old cheeks on him. But yeah, he was like, "Nah, man, we're playing. I can shake your hand later." Most people would probably write that off as just something within the heat of battle or competition. But after the game, his teammate who he extended the handshake, he didn't take too kindly to it. So we'll see how that affects that Seattle Mariners locker room dynamic once they are all back together. But that all to be said, make sure that you check out the Mile High Sports crew for the rest of the world in sports. They're going to get you all updated there. Come on down to the number 38. Check out any of the games that are going to be here on those TVs. You could buy merch as well. Certainly something to support us here on the home front. We've got the Colorado Rundown. I want to give you this message as always. If you can buy the tickets from the fighters directly, please do. We've got a bunch of events that are going on all across the board. Southern Colorado, Northern Colorado, everything in between over the course of the next few weeks. Next weekend, we have a Muay Thai matinee going down at the Stampede on the 21st. That is going to be for 5280 Muay Thai, Colorado's all-exclusive Muay Thai promotion. The next weekend, or excuse me, that same night, you have a show going down in Southern Colorado. It's the SoCo Showdown happening at the Pueblo Ice Arena. That is going to be, again, on March 21st. That is going to be Saturday night down in Pueblo. The next weekend, you have Colorado Combat Club making its return on March 28th at the Stampede. It's going to be an afternoon show, so make sure that you have your calendars marked for that accordingly. Couple of weeks off from that, and then there are going to be shows going down for Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship here in Denver. Chris Camozzi going to be on the card, Kat Paprocki on the card, a couple of other friendly and notable names from the Denver area that I don't think they've made their public announcement yet, so I'll hold off and I'll let them do that. But yeah, you're going to be happy with some of the names that are on that card. Following that, You've got CJJC, Colorado Jiu-Jitsu Club, making its return for the 30th show in the promotions installments, going down at the Eclipse Event Center. That's over off of Sheridan. It's pretty much like just south of Sheridan and Jewel, if you want to check that out. And then the following weekend up in Loveland, you have Sparta with their AVM card that's going down at the Blue Arena in Loveland. Got a couple of Colorado guys that are going to be in action too across the weekend. I know right now Isaiah Torres, he's over in Korea, so want to give shout out to the hometown kid over there trying to get business taken care of on that front. And then also want to give a big shout out to Jacoby Big Toe Jones, who's fighting this weekend on the LFA card down in Phoenix, Arizona. If you have the chance, tune into the LFA card on Vice TV and you'll be able to check out Big Toe there. Moving along to the weekend recap here. Over the weekend, down in Southern Colorado, in Colorado Springs, at the Colorado Springs City Hub, you had Battle MMA Championships 18. In, I believe it was the main event, you had Avery Olszewski winning the amateur bantamweight title by knockout. Avery Olszewski, that kid has a lot of tools. I'm really excited to see what he does going forward with his career. You know, that's someone who has a great deal of potential, but he's also got work ethic behind him, and he has a solid camp. He's got Coach Gilbert Smith, who right now also has his son going to be fighting this week in the UFC, so we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. You had Emily Allport retaining her women's strawweight title in a very tightly contested battle against Kyra Dial. You had one of two Lee brothers on the card. You had Ronan Lee winning by rear naked choke, moves his professional record to an unblemished 4-0. You had Alejandro the Hurricane Rodriguez winning by Kimura in the second round. You had Dylan Ruane with a very successful and entertaining, explosive 20-second first round finish for his pro debut. That kid is exciting to watch too. Just by the way, folks, again, like he's only 1-0 as a pro, but seeing what he did as an amateur, what he did as a grappler, and then what he did in just striking specific affairs like 5280, along with his MMA performances, that's going to be a kid that's fun to watch going forward. So keep your eyes on him. Damian Lee, other Lee brother, he won by first round TKO. Jermel Trueblood won by TKO. Michael Borja won by rear naked choke. And then you had a couple of debutantes in Alejandro Hermosillo winning by rear naked choke. And then you had Marquelo Mitchell, who also won by TKO. So a couple of finishes to start off the card there. Big action, big entertainment down there at the Colorado Springs City Hub. Shout out to the Battle Crew for putting on a great show and giving all of these fighters an opportunity to go out there, have a platform to showcase their skills. Moving along from that, we're going to talk now UFC 326. UFC 326, it was pretty much panned by most fans, to take a film critic term. It wasn't very well liked overall. There was only a couple of finishes on the card. Now, do I still think that there were some really good fights? 100%, absolutely. But in terms of what fans were expecting, especially say in the main event, well, it was a snoozer, to say the least. We're going to talk a little bit more about the BMF belt and the concept of BMF later on in the program. But as far as the fight itself goes, if you were to take away the title, the BMF belt, that sort of aura or element to this main event fight between Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway, I would have absolutely zero issue. I would say that Charles Oliveira did exactly what he needed to do, being a fight or two away from being the next one in line to challenge for a 155-pound undisputed title shot. I would say that he did everything in a normal fight circumstance that you would need to do to go out there and have a dominant performance in a regular fight. Did he dominate? Yes. Did he take minimal damage against one of the most dangerous guys in the promotion's history? Yes. Did he get his lick back for a loss earlier in his career? Yes. But was it as boring as watching grass grow? Yes. Again, in most cases, I'm fine with making the business decision. I am cool with you going out there and saying that, hey, I have a better path to victory or a higher percentage of victory that you don't have an answer for. When we hit the ground and go to the canvas, you didn't show anything in you know, especially once you get to rounds 3, 4, and 5. You didn't show me anything in rounds 1 and 2 that you had the technical ability to be able to A, stop my takedown, and B, get back up once I've taken you down. Again, circle back to the conversations that I had following the DDP and Hamzat fight, or following Valentina and Weili, or Islam and JDM. I supported them in what they did in those fights, that they said, hey, I'm going to use this element or this tool, this tactic, this strategy that I have within my arsenal that my opponent can't stop. And I'm not going to take damage. I'm going to prolong my career. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to get this bag. No, I was an advocate for them. I spoke in their favor. But those weren't for BMF belts. So again, we'll talk a little bit more on that concept directly in just a few minutes. You have Caio Borralho in the co-main event going out there and getting the win over Reiner de Ritter. While Reiner was able to have a bit of a better showing than he did in his fight against Brendan Allen, I don't know. I think that we've probably seen what his ceiling is in the UFC. And maybe it's too early to write him off, but there were a lot of moments of that fight where he just simply against Caio looked uncomfortable. I think that's the best way that I can put it, is that, you know, without going so far as to say he didn't look like he wanted to be there. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. They were talking about that on the broadcast, how he looked like he was everywhere but in the cage at times. I don't know if I'll go that far, but I will say that he looked uncomfortable. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know what the necessary steps that him and his team are going to make him overcome whatever hurdle it is that he's facing, whether it is a skill gap or whether it's something in between the ears. I don't have the right answer to that. All I know is that the optics from the outside looking in, it wasn't the best image. Caio, though, I think that Caio Borralho is a guy who he will eventually challenge for a UFC title. Whether or not he can actually ever achieve the apex and get to that mountaintop, it's tough to be told, or it's too tough to forecast. There's so many variables in the process. What I will say is that he has a well-rounded game. His skill set is world-class. His fight IQ is high level. And he possesses tools that are multifaceted. Now, the ultimate question at middleweight for anybody is, how is anybody going to deal with the wrestling of Hamzat? That's going to be the question. Can he solve that? Can he solve that part of the equation? Can the fighting nerd be a crazy brainiac and find a solve? Well, if he keeps on winning, he'll eventually have his opportunity to see. The next matchup, we had a changing of the guard. We talked about how we've had quite a few of the dynamics of this particular fight that happened. You had Raul Rosas Jr., 21 years old, has entered the rankings. He went out there and he basically, what at a lesser level, he did to Rob Font what Charles Oliveira did to Max Holloway. Rob Font didn't have an answer for the takedowns. He didn't have an answer to be able to get up once Raul was backpacking him, or once Raul was just riding him out on the ground. Raul is going to have to figure out in time how to do more damage once he gets to those grounded sequences. He's going to have to figure out how to be a little bit more offensive versus just having the control time. But this kid is just 21 years old. And having the ability to grapple like that already, or to be able to ragdoll some of these guys who have been fixtures of the rankings for damn near 10 years. And granted, Rob Font is not known necessarily for his grappling, but that's still somebody who is by far and large his superior or his senior. That's somebody who has grown man strength already, if you will, versus someone who's 21 and still growing into himself. So yeah, I do think that makes Raul Rosas Jr. a danger going forward, but I do think in comparison to some of his peers that are higher than him in the rankings, there's still quite a bit of a deficiency with other parts of his game. Can he wrestle with any of those top guys? Well, I mean, maybe, spare him your couple of guys at the very top, like your Marabs, or maybe a bit of an Umar, or, even throw in the defensive ability of the champion in Piotr Jan. Remove some of those guys. I think that he could probably grapple with a lot of the upper echelon. But those guys who can have adequate grappling, or at least adequate defensive grappling that mix in enough striking to disrupt the rhythm and the timing of Raul Rosas Jr., that's what he's going to have to figure out going forward. But again, the kid is just 21 years old, and he's finally, for lack of a better sense, found a bit of a home with Coach John Crouch down in Arizona at the MMA lab. Now, whether or not that's something that's a long-standing move or not, that's yet to be seen, right? I do know that his brother's down there with, Kevin used to train with Kevin. Then he was down there spending time, and then did some work with Coach Crouch. And he said, man, like, I really felt that the instructions that he was giving while, I was sparring, while I was getting my work in, were really clear, and we clicked and had chemistry. So that's why he decided to have Crouch part of a full-time part of his camp now. Well, we'll see how that works out for him going forward, because that is a strong stable of fighters, especially anywhere 35 through 55. You have some of the best in that room. We'll see how that works out for him going forward. I think that if he makes that a permanent move, instead of just bouncing around all the time and kind of running his own camps, that could pay some fruitful dividends for this young up-and-coming bantamweight. Following that, you had Drew Dober knocking out Michael Johnson. I mean, KO'd him stiff. Drew Dober kept the streak going. He spoke about it last week, or he put up a video, both him and Michael Johnson acknowledged it, that, Drew isn't necessarily a fan of that claim that's out there, or this sort of, I don't know if stigma is the right word, but this label that's been bestowed upon him.
It's just a trend.
Yeah. I mean, all it is just pointing out statistics, right? Not going to go down that rabbit hole, but yeah, Drew Dober picks up another knockout against Michael Johnson. He is the lightweight knockout king. Couldn't have wished for it for a better human in the sport. I've said it time and time again. In terms of I've never met Stephen Wonderboy Thompson directly personally. As far as all of the hundreds, thousands, whatever fighters that I've met all throughout the years, Drew Dober might be the nicest guy that I've ever met. Just one of the most genuine humans that you could ever possibly come across. And so whenever Drew goes out there and has success, I love to see it. That's now back-to-back wins, back-to-back knockouts that he's put together. He was on a bit of a skid for a couple of fights. He spoke about some of the struggles that he had going into his previous fight in that post-fight press conference after getting the win. When you know some of the story behind the man going out there and putting himself into the arena, that just makes you want them to have success that much more. So again, a big shout out to Drew Dober. Couldn't happen for a better guy. Moving along from that fight, you had a rematch between Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez against Bruno Ferreira. This rematch played out pretty much the Uno reverse card, or like the carbon copy, the mirror image, the whatever descriptor you want to throw at it. That was the direct inverse from what happened in the first fight. I think it was the first strike that RoboCop actually landed, but that was all he needed. Right away, first round, knockout, eyes still open as he hits the canvas, sort of a no question affair. I told you last week that this was going to be a don't blink fight. Am I wrong? Was I wrong? Oh, Curtsy was right again, folks. And I think that if they were to, at some point in time, you probably don't do it anytime in the near future. I wouldn't imagine so, at least, but run that one back. Let's have a rubber match. Why not? I love trilogies. You have both guys who have knockouts against each other that it was the same exact knockout that they both scored on each other. Why not have a rubber match and let's see who comes out on top? In general, though, man, RoboCop, what a And it's not to say that Bruno Ferreira isn't a talented guy, that he doesn't have ability, because he does still have a lot of future, does still have a lot of potential. But RoboCop is just one of those dudes that whenever you see him on the bout sheet, you can't not watch him. You can't not tune in. He's a world champion grappler, one of the most decorated guys to ever come into the mixed martial arts world from jiu-jitsu, and he doesn't use it. He never chooses to use it. He uses all of his grappling essentially in a defensive sense to be able to go out there and just knock dudes' blocks off. And he's a killer be killed type of fighter. I mean, we saw a couple of years ago when he had that gash that opened up in between his eyes where it was I don't know the right exact term, but it was like an arterial laceration where with every pulse of his heartbeat, it's just like squirting out blood, and just continue to fight through and picked up the win. So yeah, you can't not watch RoboCop. He is one of the most entertaining guys on the entire roster. Former LFA champion, certainly has high aspirations for himself going forward. I mean, the dude looks like he's 50 years old, but he still has plenty of time left on the clock. Just one of those guys that has like, he's got Obama face. Like he looks old, but he's going to stay looking the same for like 30 years. Like when he was 20, he looked 50, but he's going to look that same age for forever. Moving along from that, you had Cody Garbrandt picking up a win against Long Shao. Now, this one had a real interesting element of adversity in it. Cody Garbrandt got kicked in the nuts a couple of times so devastatingly brutally. And every dude who saw it, you felt it right in the plums. I mean, you had your own stomach twisting, seeing Cody Garbrandt writhing in pain and having to grab the bucket and puke because he got shot in the nuts so hard, but was able to overcome that adversity and gets the win. Now, you can say that it was controversial in the sense that it was because of the point deductions, that's how he gets the win and all. It still happened. He didn't choose to get fouled. I don't get people's arguments sometimes, and I'm saying, oh, well, because in some fights or some cases you argue and you say, well, they should have taken a point and they didn't. Well, this time they take the points and then you're bitching about the decision because of the points that were taken. You can't have it both ways. You're either going to enforce the penalties or you're not. Like, the foul was committed. It was fight altering by all letter of the law. A point should have been taken. There were multiple fouls. When you have a guy who is on the canvas, who is just squirming from the pain and has to puke because of it, that is a potentially fight-altering foul. That should 100% of the time be a point deduction. No questions asked. Next fight from that, you had a split decision victory for Dante Johnson. It was a heartbreaker against our boy Cody Brundage. You know, I hope that Cody's able to bounce back and find an opportunity to get his hand raised in the octagon again. You know, you could see the emotion on Cody's face. Took it on a month's note, or from a month from his last fight, on very short notice to fill in for this opportunity. So you got to feel for him. Moving along from that, you had a technical submission victory, Alberto Montez with a Darce choke, or it's labeled as a Darce here on Tapology, but I'm pretty sure it was an Anaconda. Ricky Turcios, he got tech subbed in his debut at 145 pounds. You got to feel for Ricky Turcios too. Ricky Turcios, a former Ultimate Fighter champion. He's had some limited activity because of injuries or because of opponent situations where they backed out at the last minute. You know, he was a part of the last minute pullout situation that happened in Mexico City with Raul Rosas Jr. Had a couple of other fallouts. I believe it was a Smotherman fight a couple of weeks back where he faints infamously coming off the stage from weighing in. So he's had some setbacks, right? He's had some things that have happened outside of his control that have kept him away. But I think that this was just a matchup of being up against somebody who is coming into their own. You have Alberto Montez, who is now 11-1. And that front headlock series that he has, I mean, as described by the broadcaster, all notes leading into it, that's his bread and butter. As soon as he was able to find the crook of the elbow with his grip, it was a wrap. Like, you could see within just a couple of seconds, you see Ricky go out. Great stoppage by the referee to see that it was a technical sub. Moving from there, you had a couple of other fights that we're going to hit here to speak about before we move along. Sumaderji, man, that was an exciting performance overall against Jesus Aguilar, but the division is wide open right now at 125. And I think that there were a couple of missed opportunities for Sumaderji where he could have went out there, put the foot on the gas, and got Aguilar out of there. Aguilar's dangerous for sure. But I just think that Sumaderji showed that he was better last Saturday night everywhere. He started to open up and have some opportunities and scoring sequences that had Jesus Aguilar in trouble toward the end of the fight, but would reset, would not keep forward. I think that it was a missed opportunity for him to say, yes, I'm one of those next coming guys. And then a shout out to another guy who did some training here in the Denver area for his camp. You had DR Nagazai. That was one of the fights opening up the card. And then Adolfo Bellato had a KO TKO in the first round, opening up the card against Luke Fernandez. We're going to take a quick break, folks. We're going to be back, and we're going to talk about a couple of the fight cards that are coming up this weekend, another subject, and then hitting 3 rounds to close out the show.
When I go to court, these aren't my clients. These are my friends. These are people that I believe in. And they have one shot, just one shot for justice. If they've come to me and we've gotten a trial, their life has been turned upside down in some awful way. I'm all they have. So if I haven't put the time in, if I haven't trained, if I haven't humbly looked in the mirror and thought about ways I can be better, and I don't present my best self in court, then I failed them. And that's what motivates me as a trial lawyer, because when this is over, that client goes home. And if I haven't done my best for him, I haven't been his champion, then I've failed.
At Hooters, you can watch the tournament with your buddies. All your buddies. Like the ones with ice-cold beer. And one-of-a-kind wings that are nothing but net. You know, buddies you won't have to fight for the remote. Buddies who know a thing or two about basketball. And the fans who live for it.
Where else are you gonna get all this?
Hooters, your official hangout for game day.
Welcome back to the MMA Plug on Mile High Sports. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz. Give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery on Instagram and Threads, the Peanut Gallery MMA on TikTok. We're going to talk this weekend's UFC Fight Night card going down in the Meta Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, in the main event, it's a featherweight showdown happening between Josh Emmett and Kevin Vallejos. Kevin Vallejos had that massive victory at the end of 2025 against Giga Chikadze. Internet-breaking knockout against a guy who was a striking specialist. Still relatively unknown and flying under the radar at a ripe 17-1, but this dude is for real. And he's going to have the opportunity to go out there against a longtime veteran, a fixture of the rankings, a former interim title challenger in Josh Emmett, to go out there and have another statement against a big-name veteran and continue his ascent, or at least hope to continue his ascent up the rankings. On the flip side, anytime that you're in there with Josh Emmett and you're trying to strike, or striking is what's your bread and butter or what you do best and your preferred route towards victory, like Kevin, it's still going to be tough against a guy like Josh Emmett, right? Just simply because power is the last thing to go. Josh Emmett absolutely on the back nine. I mean, the 19th hole is way closer than anything else at this stage, but that's still a dangerous man who has a ridiculous right hand that has put some of the best to sleep at 145 pounds. Is this another changing of the guard? Is this that old dog handing the torch over to the rising prospect? I think we could very well see that happening. Though, again, just keep in mind, if Josh Emmett wins, you can almost certainly bet that it's going to be by an overhand right. On the contrary, if you're the Vallejos camp, you should know that that's his only way to win this fight. You game plan for everything else, or to attack everything else besides allowing that opportunity to materialize. But that's why they fight the fight. And somebody like Josh Emmett, all he needs is one. In the co-main event, You have the reconnection of a matchup that fell through last year between Jillian Robertson taking on Amanda Lemisch. Lemisch fell ill following weigh-ins. I'm pretty positive was the reasoning for that one being pulled last second. I love me some Savage. I love Jillian Robertson. She goes out there with a style where she wants to find finishes every single time that she fights. Unfortunately, she was robbed of the opportunity multiple times last year. She had multiple cancellations, and a couple of them, as mentioned with the Lemisch fight, canceled at the very 11th hour, right before the fight was supposed to happen. I mean, gets all the way through camp, gets all the way up to the altar, and isn't able to go through. She's going to have the chance tomorrow. Or excuse me, she's going to have the chance on Saturday night. She's got, maybe outside of Mackenzie Dern at 150 pounds, she's probably got the best armbar series or the best setup for her armbar at 115 pounds that the UFC has ever seen. Give credit to the champ. Give credit to Mackenzie, especially with all of her grappling accolades. But in the UFC specifically, Jillian has the resume to say that she's right in that same discussion. Her volume of finishes, and she's getting better in the striking department. And now, whereas in the past, as soon as she would get to the canvas, she's looking for that armbar setup and she's trying to finish the armbar immediately. We've seen a little bit more over her last couple performances. She's cooking a little bit more once she gets to the ground. Once they get to the canvas, she's using more ground and pound. She's using damage to open things up. And sometimes she's just sticking with the damage factor and inflicting pain and using her elbows, using her hammer fists, using stuff to, maybe she'll take the armbar if someone gives it, but she's also cool with just battering you, which makes her in turn a more exciting prospect in time, you know, just to go see someone essentially Lady Khabibing somebody. It's going to be tough to do it against Lemisch. Lemisch is a very qualified opponent, one of the top ranked fighters of the division for a reason. But if she does have a deficiency, if she does have a weakness, it's going to be in the grappling department. It's going to be in the submission defense. Is she a better striker? Sure. But do I think that Jillian Robertson is potentially, especially after the time away, going to show an even different layer of evolution to her striking game? I think we could probably bet on it. All the time that she's put in with Dean Thomas through the years, the time spending with Goat Shed, and the momentum that some of their fighters have had recently, you know, I think that it could very well be one of those marquee moments where Jillian Robertson puts herself into the next level of the division. Following that, you've got a middleweight fight between Umar Sy taking on Ion Cutelaba. Umar is 12-1 coming into this fight. You know, obviously the guy's had a great deal of success so far throughout his run, but he's going to go in there against a veteran who has fought basically everybody. Cutelaba has had wars, which could be to his detriment at this stage of his career. But I think that he brings a great deal of experience, and his style, him not being afraid to go in there and grind it out in the process of having some of these crazy, wild exchanges and brawls. It's going to be a very formidable test against somebody who is rising like Umar is, just 13 fights into his career. One of the matchups that I'm excited to see, I mean, hey, he's a live by the sword, die by the sword type of fighter, and not everything goes his way, but he's very introspective. He's very self-reflective. Somebody who bears his soul to the fans, to the audience, to anybody who will listen, and is just a fun dude to watch. That's Andre Touchy-Feely. He's taken on Jose Delgado. Again, another matchup of a veteran who's long in the tooth, Andre Touchy-Feely, coming into the fight with 37 pro fights, taking on Jose Delgado at just 12. This is a big dynamic, again, of the old dog with the young rising bull. You know, how does this work out? Delgado is certainly a very dangerous opponent. But how does that stack up against the experience? How does that stack up against the multifaceted tools that Andre Fili brings? It's why they fight the fight. I've said it many a times, and I'll continue to say that phrase. Next fight, I mean, to me, Marwan Rahiki taking on Harry Hardwick. I don't even need to give you any analysis. Harry Hardwick sucks. Take Marwan Rahiki. Like, Harry Hardwick, he's the only guy that I can remember that we had to see basically be taken out of the cage in the way that he was when he made his debut over in Europe last year. Like, I can understand being stretchered out if you're, Connor, Chris Weidman, Anderson Silva, Corey, any of these guys who like legitimately snapped a limb. But this dude just took an ass whooping and basically laid an egg for the entire world to see. He's facing a 7-0 Australian in Marwan, and I think that this could probably be, for sure 25K to 100K performance for the young fighter in Marwan. Vitor Petrino taking on Steven Asplund. Steven Asplund, fun fight or a great performance in his last outing. Even better message in his post-fight speech. He's got a tough fight in Vitor Petrino, who has done well so far at heavyweight. I mean, the only two fights that Petrino has lost over the course of his entire career are to Anthony Smith and Dustin Jacoby. Vitor Petrino, especially at heavyweight, not having to cut the weight to get to 205. The dude is built like an Adonis. The guy looks like he could go hit the stage for a bodybuilding, whatever, like NPC type of show. That dude is ridiculous as far as his physique and his musculature. So not having to peel himself all the way down to 205, well, it's had some positive yielding results at heavyweight. He's going to have somebody who's a gamer in Steven Asplund. I mean, Steven Asplund, he'll take the Zach Cummings line. Well, it's a good thing that this isn't a beauty contest. This is an ass-kicking contest, and I sure as hell know how to fight. Well, we're going to have to see how that all pans out, because Vitor Petrino isn't necessarily an endurance demon by any means, but is he high octane and want to put you out early? Sure. Steven Asplund, though, at the same time, 7-1 as a heavyweight. He's got heavy hands. He wants to go in there and he wants to punch your lights out, and he's going to try to use positioning to work you into his favor for the exchanges that he wants to throw. You've got our friend, the Energy Charles Johnson, back on the card, making a return against Bruno Silva. Brad Tavares making his return back to the octagon after quite some time, taking on another friend of the program. You have Eric, your boy Anders. This is Eric's retirement fight. So flying maybe a little bit under the radar as far as, notoriety or anything, but, just want to give a tip of the old ball cap to your boy for having quite the run in the UFC. He got into fighting later on in life, was a national champion with the University of Alabama Crimson Tide, was a big part of that. I believe it was the 2009 game against the University of Texas where he had that strip sack fumble in the national championship game. Had a cup of tea in the NFL, migrates over into the mixed martial arts world, and within a few fights makes it to the UFC. Has fought some of the best that the sport has had to offer. He's fought guys like Lyoto Machida. He's fought title challengers like Thiago Santos. He's fought other champions like Chris Weidman out there and everybody in between throughout the years. Has he had some adversity inside and outside of the cage? 100%. He's human. But has he also made a lot of life changes for the better over the course of the recent time? I would just say check out his social media and see the video and his testimony that he shared earlier this week to get a little bit more insight on that. But just got to throw a big shout out to Eric, because when I first got into this business years ago, he was one of the first like big high profile major name guys, whatever, if you will, that embraced me, or that accepted me as a friend. He came to my birthday party years ago, like, 2018, 2019, something like that. So like I say, that's just someone who he's been around at the highest of high levels for a long time. This is his retirement fight. He's got his gym down there that he opened up, your boy MMA and Fitness, down in Alabama. anytime that we see some of our fan favorite or our fighters that we've grown attached to leave the game, it's always a tough thing to see. But hopefully in his case, he goes out there, he gets his hand raised against a guy who has been around for absolutely forever. I believe it was the Ultimate Fighter season 11 that Brad Tavares was on, same season that he was on with Chris Camozzi, Court McGee, all those guys once upon a time. But yeah, moving along from that, you've got a matchup with another one of my boys, Chris Curtis, taking on Miktabek Oralba. Miktabek Oralba had a massive victory against Hayward Charles here on an LFA card in Vail. If you look up textbook uppercut, you're going to see a gif of that knockout. Chris Curtis making his move down to 170 pounds. I'll be real. I don't know how in the hell Chris is going to get to 170. He's the consummate professional, and I have no doubt that when it comes time on Friday morning to step on the scales, that he will be where he needs to be. But again, I just have to say, that's a big guy getting to 170. Like, Chris has no neck. He's just a thick, dense dude that I have a hard time seeing him getting all the way to 170, but not to say that it can't be done. Should be an interesting fight with him going up against the missing link in evolution in Miktabek Oralba. A couple other fights to talk about on the card before we move along to the next segment. You've got Elijah Swift-Smith, friend of the program, good friend of mine, former champion of ours at Colorado Combat Club as an amateur as well as a pro, was also a champion for Battle MMA in the pro ranks before he went on to Contender Series and got signed into the UFC. He's taken on Su Young Yu. Su Young Yu is coming off of a win in his last outing against AJ Cunningham. Now, Elijah Smith last year set the world on fire with his powerbomb knockout. Elijah is a kid who he's young in the game, but he's got a great head. He's got tremendous instincts. He's worked with some of the best guys in the entire sport, working his way up through the room in Colorado Springs, spending time up here in Denver with guys like Yusuf Salal, Chris Gutierrez, and so on and so forth. Elijah Smith, just to me, is a kid who just has an it factor about him. It's going to be tough going up against a guy like Su Young Yu, who we know probably is going to want to try to wet blanket him. He's going to try to just wrestle him and play the positional game. But Elijah's a good wrestler. I think Elijah will be explosive and scrambly enough to be able to work out of some of those bad positions that Young is going to try to put him in. And he's also fast and explosive enough to where he will make him pay once those exchanges don't work in his favor. Speed kills. Speed is absolutely one of the most devastating factors that happens across all of sports. And Elijah Swift-Smith has the type of quickness, the precision, the speed, the agility that you just can't teach. You can go out there, you could spend all the time in the world in the gym and the performance centers with your strength conditioning coach. You could spend all the time that you want trying to work on being faster, being more explosive. Some people just have it at a higher level. It's something that's God-given. You just have a little bit of that extra bit of talent that you're born with. And Elijah Swift-Smith is one of those guys. And want to throw a shout out to another friend in Sam Page Hughes. She's taken on Piera La Fiera Rodriguez. Also know Piera, don't know her as well, but Piera Rodriguez, an exciting fighter, always tries to bring violence to the cage. On the flip side, Sam Hughes is a grinder. Sam Hughes is somebody who she's going to do whatever it takes to possibly win in a fight. Former endurance athlete in college turned fighter, was an LFA champion, and has had some ups and downs in the UFC, but has also been somebody who they put in a lot of matchups where they were absolutely putting her in there to get beat. Make no mistake about it. She was the B side of some of those matchups against some big hype trains, and Sam Page went out there and knocked that hype train right off the tracks. She derailed those prospects. I look for this to be another exciting performance for her to go out there and just upend a prospect who, for at one point in time, was going to get a heavy push. Another former LFA standout and star champion, all that, so on and so forth. But that wraps up our talk here for the UFC Fight Night card. Going to give you a quick reaction to the White House and then close out the show. First off, I'll open up the floor. What did you guys think of the announcement for the White House card? It wasn't the jaw dropper that I think many of us were maybe expecting. There were some notable omissions from the card in terms of names. It still is a large mystery of who the supposed fight that fell off the night before the announcement was. There's still definitely a lot of mystery surrounding a lot of this. But in large, do I think that they hit on having certain names on the card. But I think that on the opposite side of that same coin, they missed a few home run opportunities. There were a few matchups that you could have had on this card that would have been can't miss, or a couple of names that you put on here can't miss based on the significance of the Freedom 250 card. Now, I will say this, that for some guys or some matchups that you thought might have maybe been on here or potential options, what we don't know is, did they have something that was flagging their background check or security issues, all of that? Because Steve Mean Machine Garcia, he came out and said that they came directly to him and asked, hey, is there anything when we go through all of your security clearances, checks, blah, 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 all of that throughout your history, do you have any arrests? Do you have any this or that could potentially be an issue? So I know that they were going through everybody with a pretty fine-tooth comb, which is why you could probably make, if they're going off of potential criminal history, well, John Jones is out. Not even a question. Like, you can't even consider him if they're doing just basic background checks that any sort of criminal offenses are going to flag you from being cleared. He's gone. He's done. So that's a moot point at this stage of the game. In the main event, you have a lightweight championship. You have Ilia Topuria taking on Justin Gaethje. This was a fight that was added to the card pretty last minute as far as all of the information that we've been given, but this is a unification bout. Justin Gaethje being the interim champion, taking on Ilia Topuria being the undisputed champ. Man, that's a fight that they knocked it out of the park. You can't say that matchup was a miss. I don't think so at all. The next fight, the co-main event, you have Alex Pereira taking on Cyril Gane. Well, what did I tell you? It was either last week or the week before when I was talking about remedies for the heavyweight division. Said allow for Alex Pereira to go up and challenge for heavyweight gold. Give him the opportunity to be to be the first 3-division champion in UFC history. Still, it's for interim, but nonetheless, it is for a third belt in a third division. You'd never had a better option or a better chance for somebody to go and do it than you did right then and there with him. Let it happen. You could make the argument that, well, Gane being the dance partner, that's maybe what's left up to some speculation for this matchup. But if we take a look at the lay of the land, who else would you have? Because if you can't have John from either his actual, his nefarious activity and transgressions that would legally exclude him, if you look at just the antics of why the UFC and why Dana has said that he doesn't trust putting John in a marquee spot like this, well, that's another factor for sure. Tom Aspinall is not available. Who else do you put in there with Alex? It's got to be Gane. I mean, Gane's probably had more chances at UFC Gold than, like even Chael was talking about. He's probably had more chances at Gold that he was just thrown into than me. Well, he's not off in saying that. But again, when you look at it, Cyril Gane's only 2 losses are to Francis Ngannou and John Jones. There's nobody else that you could really throw in ahead of him. For this type of card, you needed to have Poatan on it, so you had to find who was the best available dance partner for him. The next matchup is where they got one half of it right. They screwed the pooch on the other half. You had a can't-miss matchup available for Sugar Sean O'Malley with Corey Sandhagen. That should have 100% been the fight. Corey wanted it. The people wanted it. The fans wanted it. Sugar didn't. Suga took the much easier fight in Ayman Zahabi. It's not to knock Zahabi and say that he's not a good fighter, because he is, but is he the exciting fight? Is he the more dangerous fight? Is he the more enticing or the more appetizing fight from a fan perspective? Abso-freaking-lutely not. So that one, I believe, is a miss. You have Mauricio Rufy taking on Michael Chandler. I'm not mad at it. Chandler was a guy who they had to throw him a bone. Put him on a card like this, especially after all that he endured with the Conor McGregor saga. You had to give Chandler an opportunity to be on a big card like this. I'm not mad at that. And you're going to also, on the flip side, give an opportunity like Mauricio Rufy, a rising star in the lightweight division. You're going to give him another veteran to go out there and try to continue to build his name on as he encroaches toward contendership. Next one, a bit of a head scratcher, but it's also understanding, Bo Nickel being on the card. That's now, Bo Nickel was on the main card at UFC 300, or excuse me, he was on the card at UFC 300, and then now he's also on Freedom 250. I don't know that I necessarily agree with Bo Nickel being on the card, and especially taking on Kyle Daukaus. That's a very winnable fight for Daukaus. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Daukaus goes out there and he finds a finish against Bo Nickel. Is Bo the better wrestler? 100%. But is Daukaus the better submission grappler? His nickname is literally the Darce Knight. And is he the better overall striker? I totally agree. Then opening up the card, this one to me was an absolute head scratcher. Is it a banger of a matchup? Is this one almost guaranteed to have somebody go to sleep and probably in the first round? Yes. But you have Diego Lopez at number 2 taking on number 9 ranked Steve Mean Machine Garcia. I have no idea why in the blue hell, if you're the Diego Lopez camp, you're taking a fight that far back in the rankings against somebody who is as dangerous as Steve Garcia is. Steve Garcia's run of first-round knockouts and just his trajectory or his path, his resume, his history of punching guys' lights out, that's dangerous for anybody. Is it a winnable fight for Diego? 100%. But is it a winnable matchup for Steve Garcia? Absolutely. When you hit as hard as Steve Mean Machine Garcia does, and you have anybody who is willing to stand there and is willing to strike with you, there is absolutely a chance that you win that fight and you knock them out. That's just the way that Mean Machine is. His hands are that heavy and they deserve that much respect. So again, I'm not sure why that was a matchup that the Lopez camp agreed to. They both have the same management. I really don't know what the thought behind that was, but it's absolutely an exciting fight to open up that card. So overall, would I give this card a grade? Well, I'm not going to say that it was a complete flop like some people were. I'll give it a C+. I'll give it a C+. I think that's fair based on some of the names that were available out there. I mean, not having a Strickland on there, but again, that could be a legal issue. And also, Strickland holding out for Hamzat. It's definitely a legal issue to not have Hamzat. Hamzat calls himself a terrorist. You can only imagine what's on his criminal record. And Hamzat's had visa issues. So I can understand if he has visa issues, well, there's probably going to be security and background clearance issues for the Chechen, especially right now when we're in a period of global conflict, just throwing that out there. You don't have Colby Covington on the card. Another person who you would think, based off of where things were or where his position has been, might have been someone who was a can't miss, but not there. Kayla Harrison, still not going to be available based on the recovery from her injury. But yeah, so a few names that you thought might have at one point in time been on the card that are not. I told you that Conor wasn't going to be in the mix for it. There's no way that you can put Conor on a card at the White House that you're not drawing any sort of revenue from, or you're not having a live gate or any of the fanfare that surrounds it. I knew that wasn't going to be the case. But you could also still probably think that, because they're not calling this, they said that they're not calling this International Fight Week. You could probably say that he will be a headliner later on in the summer. Moving along from that, just real quick, talking about the concept of BMF for Curtsy's Message of the Week and Curtsy's Corner. The BMF belt is dead. The BMF belt is dead, and Charles Oliveira effectively killed it. I think that when we're talking about the concept of the BMF belt, the perfect embodiment of it is how Max Holloway went out there and fought Justin Gaethje at UFC 300. It is that even after 24 minutes and 50 seconds of winning a fight, as you could have cruised to victory for those last 10 seconds, are the guy who's willing to put yourself in the fire and in danger, point down and say, you or me. I think that's what the BMF belt is. That's what the original concept that was created by Nate Diaz, who was of that same mold at the time. The second fight, the back and forth exchange that ended in a head kick knockout between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. That third edition of it with Max and Justin at UFC 300. Those were what the BMF belt should be. Those are fights between a couple of veterans who are kill or be killed, go out on your shield or come back carrying it type of guys. It is not for the risk averse route. It is not for the avoid risk route, the ride out the victory, the make the business decision. It's willing to go out there and say, hey, you know what? I may be up and have victory in hand, but I'm going to go and put it on the line with 10 seconds left, and it's you or me. I think that now the belt effectively, treat this like some things happen in pro wrestling. It's got to go away for a couple of years. You got to shelf the concept for a while now. Let it go away. Let it maybe build up a little bit of hype from the fan base in a couple of years, once you maybe have some of these guys who are veterans who have a bang it out sort of style. Give them the opportunity in a couple of years to go out there and maybe have a new iteration of it. But for right now, it is dead. You could put a fork in it. Moving along, though, to 3 rounds to close out the show. Got my man Danny Bailey behind the boards. First round. What do we have?
Ronda Rousey went on the offensive against the UFC earlier this week at the MVP MMA. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Ronda, ever since this fight was announced, has pretty much been on the offensive, taking shots at the UFC, but I think it's to be expected. She's Dana's prodigy. Dana gave her his blessing to go out there and pursue this opportunity. Well, she's, in a sense, with MVP, kind of now a co-promoter of the entire event, being that she is the A side of the main event here. They also added Francis Ngannou to the card, taking on a 40-year-old Felipe Lins, but that's a total different discussion. We'll talk more about that on a different day. But as Dana's prodigy, I expect nothing less. She learned the ropes of fight promotion from him directly for years. She's going to take shots. She's going to make sensationalized claims that fighters like Valentina Shevchenko have to, quote unquote, sell pictures of their titties. She got the concept right. There are some fighters out there who do that, but it's not Valentina. She's going to call out some things, though, very bold in the face, which she did, talking about certain aspects of the new revenue share, or the $7.7 billion deal, $1.1 billion per year versus their $100 million previously. She talked about all of these things. She wasn't wrong in a lot of it. But being that it's coming from Ronda, there's going to always draw a little bit of speculation. But her going out there and her making some of these brash claims or creating some of these headlines, that's the art of fight promotion, baby. Does that not sound familiar? Well, just last week, you had Dana White calling Eddie Hearn a pussy on every interview that he could. He said that if they went out there and what other sports league leaders do you have out there that say, oh, give me this person out there and I'll kick their ass? You don't see Roger Goodell saying that. You don't see that slender man looking dude, whatever the hell his name is from the NBA. I forget his name right now. Looks like an alien or,
Wembanyama?
No.
Chet Holmgren?
No, the commissioner.
Oh, Adam Silver.
Yeah, it looks like Slender Man out there. You don't see him going out there and saying that he's going to go and whoop somebody's ass. Or you don't see him hopping on a stream saying, yeah, partied with Kid Rock last night. I'm pretty hungover. Those are all things Dana said last week. So it's just a completely different landscape of things when you're talking about leaders of fight promotions. And, again, Ronda's going to go out there. She's going to be colorful. She's not afraid to be the heel. She's not afraid to piss people off and go against the grain. She's did it her entire career. She did it in every stage of her career. That's the art of fight promotion. When she is cool with going out there being the heel, knowing that it's going to create a buzz, it's going to have all of the attention that she created from those words that she said, calling Cyborg out for being a quote unquote roided out bitch. All of those things drew headlines across every MMA outlet and page. She knows what she's doing right now. They don't have the ability qualitatively to put together a card or a product that will mirror the UFC, even with having Francis and Felipe in the co-main. I mean, again, you're talking about a 40-year-old UFC cast-off against Francis. Like, you know, they're not going to be able to qualitatively go shot for shot, but if she can take enough verbal shots, maybe they draw a little bit of eyes. Maybe they draw a little bit of share to where they create some buzz. But you have to do some very catastrophic or significant things early on to be able to make that buzz, to make that splash, to create that awareness in the process. And the only thing that I'll leave you with that press conference is one thing I know, ladies and gentlemen, Gina Carano still has her fastball. Her sitting up there on that dais, sitting there in that black dress, had me bricked up like I was 16 in high school all over again, watching Strikeforce. Round 2.
Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao are set to rematch later this year. What are your thoughts?
Why? It's just the biggest question. Why? Floyd's 49.
Bills to pay.
Manny's 47. Yeah, it's going to be a bag, and they're going to make some money. Manny had that comeback draw that he had over the summer. Floyd's been doing exhibitions pretty much all along since he retired. But just between the two of them, why? I guess, you know, I don't even see if it's officially going to be sanctioned or not, but that could get Floyd to an official 50. But still, why? Just got to ask the question again.
Colby Covington is set to take on Dylan Dennis in the co-main event of RAF 7 in Tampa on March 28th. Did RAF nail it with this pairing?
I love it. Real American Freestyle, we've spoke very favorably about their promotion and what they're doing for freestyle wrestling on this program. I think that this is another knock it out of the park type of matchup. Is there the chance that there's going to be some controversy or there's going to be some extracurriculars? 100%. I mean, I think that they also potentially saw the buzz that they got from the Giorgio and Armand brawl at the end of RAF 6 and thought, well, hey, maybe if we have a couple of controversial guys out here, bring back a veteran like we had in Colby Covington, who was at RAF 5, and put him against the biggest super heel of combat sports. Two guys who are press conference numbers, just, yeah, they will blow the numbers for all the digitals, for everything that they do leading up in the buildup, out of the water. Two guys who there will be no length that they won't choose to go. Like every bit of each other's deepest, darkest skeleton in the closet, be prepared for that to get exposed. Once it comes to the press conference before the match, hopefully Izzy and the boys have some extra security around, because there is a chance that things could pop off between the two of these guys. I'm not saying that either one of them are your old knock off the block BMF type of guy, but Dylan gets into confrontations basically anywhere that he goes. Colby is going to say things. Dylan is going to say things. I expect it to get crazy. It's going to be toxic. There is going to be venom being slung every which direction. But that's why they nailed it. That's why it's going to be a fun thing to see. And add to it, they both can grapple. Dylan is the better submission grappler. Colby is the better wrestler. See how all of that plays out. Just like that, though, we are all out of time. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in with us for another week of original combat sports programming here at the MMA Plug on Mile High Sports, coming to you from the studio inside of number 38. As always, a shout out to the Mile High Sports crew. Want to give a massive shout out to my man, Danny Bailey, behind the boards, holding it down for me each and every week. Big ups to my boy, Jacoby Big Toe Jones. Go get it, little bro. Go get that dub this weekend for the LFA card down in Phoenix. Just like that, though, folks, that wraps us up. We'll be back with you next week. Same time, same place. I'm Jordan Kurtz. Give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery on Instagram and Threads, the Peanut Gallery MMA on TikTok. We'll see you next week. This is the MMA Plug on Mile High Sports.